Participants, please be advised today's presentation will be recorded. Good morning and welcome to Peak Resources Investor Briefing. Mr. Barton Davis, Managing Director and CEO of Peak Resources, will be presenting for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. All participants will be in listen-only mode for the duration of the presentation. At the end of the presentation, participants will have the opportunity to ask questions, either by typing a question in chat or by video and audio by raising your hand. If you do not wish to have your image on screen during your question, please ensure you've disabled your camera prior to raising your hand. If you have raised your hand and you have asked your question, you will remain unmuted in case you have a follow-up question. And on that note, I'd like to welcome the Managing Director and CEO of Peak Resources, Mr. Barton Davis, to begin his presentation. Barton, over to you.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. So Peak is a rare earth focused company, so very much aligned to thematics around decarbonisation, the rise of electric vehicles, as well as renewable energy generation. We have an important role to play in the global green transformation that is underway at the moment. I would draw your attention to the following disclaimer. And so, who are we? Well, to share a little bit more about us, we're an established and well-funded company. We're positioned to become one of the world's lowest cost and fully integrated rare earth producers. We hold one of the largest, highest grade and most advanced rare earth development projects in the world. We have an integrated downstream strategy with plans to establish a refinery at Teesside in the United Kingdom. We're also positioned to become a supplier of choice into both the European and Japanese market from 2025. So we achieved a really important milestone in late July of this year when the Tanzanian cabinet approved our special mining license application. And this elevates our status as having one of the largest, highest grade NdPr oxide projects in the world. A fully piloted flow sheet that goes from ore to concentrate to NdPr oxide. We've completed a bankable feasibility study. We have low OPEX and CAPEX intensity levels. We've got a plus 20-year life of mine supported by JORC compliant ore reserves. And the important point there is that those ore reserves account for less than 20% of our resource base. We've also got key mining, environmental and planning permits in place. Our corporate snapshot, market cap at the moment of around about 150 mil. Unfortunately, we continue to trade at a very material discount to our peers, particularly given the world-class nature of the Neguala project, our integrated strategy, and the significant amount of de-risking that's been undertaken across both the Neguala and Teesside projects. So we often get asked by shareholders and various parties, what have we been up to over the last 6 months? And the short answer to that is a lot. So over that last 6-month period at Teesside, we've successfully implemented a planning permission. We've entered into a 250-year lease over a 19-hectare site. As I mentioned before, we've secured Tanzanian cabinet approval for our special mining license application. We've bought back and terminated a 2% life of mine royalty. We've completed a $30 million placement and a $1.7 million SPP. We've commenced a bankable feasibility study update, and we've also made a series of senior technical and marketing hires. So in terms of key investment highlights, really a combination of a compelling and attractive sector outlook, very much supported by the rise of electric vehicles and wind power generation. We've got the world-class high-grade Neguala project. We've got a vertically integrated business model going from ore to concentrate to NdPr oxide. And so that's important because it enables us to optimize margins across the value chain. Strategic location at Teesside provides us very much with a plug-and-play infrastructure and utility solution. Both our Ngualla and Teesside projects have been substantially de-risked, both from a technical as well as a regulatory perspective. And importantly, we now have an experienced and well-rounded board and management team in place. So from a market perspective, expectations are that we're going to continue to see annual consumption growth of around about 10%. A lot of that sort of being driven by the EV auto sector. We're also seeing increases around wind power generation with direct drive wind turbines, as well as strong growth in consumer electronics. From a market balance perspective, evidence that the market has moved into deficit in the last couple of months, and expectations that that deficit is going to continue to build as we get out to 2030. So the current sort of forecast provided by Adamas is a deficit of 16,000 tonnes per annum in 2030. So that's roughly 5 peak projects that need to come on board to solve for that deficit. Obviously, really interesting backdrop with Glasgow COP26 and a lot of global focus and momentum around global decarbonisation initiatives, but particularly with respect to rapid growth in electric vehicles, as well as direct drive wind turbines on the renewable energy side. So what we've done on this slide is we've sort of captured some of the key developments in major markets. So in terms of the UK, the UK government has come out and announced the ban on new internal combustion engines from 2030. The UK has a really important auto sector, and the government is very focused on transforming that auto sector to be towards electric vehicles. So significant government funding is available around that transformation. And what we've also seen over the last sort of few months are very significant investment announcements by global auto brands in the UK EV space. In the US, you've obviously got President Biden with a circa US 174 bill EV package. In Europe, a lot of momentum, a recent proposal to ban new internal combustion engines from 2035. But probably the most interesting thing is the right-hand column. And what we're seeing there is global auto brands voluntarily committing to aggressive EV targets, as well as increasingly committing to the phase out of internal combustion engines. From a NdPr oxide pricing perspective, we've currently got spot prices, and this chart's a little bit dated. We've currently got spot prices of just shy of US $119 a kilo. What we've shown here on the left-hand side is that when we did our original BFS in 2017, that assumed a long-run life of mine NdPr oxide price of $77.50. And importantly, it also had a life of mine average operating costs of 32. But certainly that 77.50 is looking very conservative with respect to current spot prices, particularly in this context of expectations of rapidly growing market deficits. And another sort of really interesting thematic at the moment is around China. And so China accounts for roughly 90% of global NdPr oxide production. You've got the developed world very focused on decarbonisation, but that strategy is very much reliant upon access to long-term supply of NdPr oxide and other rare earths. So what we're seeing at the moment is a lot of strong interest internationally around supporting diversity of supply and getting up production outside of China. Some of this interest has also been exacerbated in recent weeks. There's been a lot of speculation regarding further consolidation in the Chinese market. Now, this is relevant to us because what this is doing is it's driving strategic interest in long-term offtake arrangements. And it's also supporting funding appetite from export credit agencies, development banks, as well as sort of encouraging governments to provide direct funding grants to the sector. So complementing the compelling sector fundamentals is the world-class nature of the Ngualla project. So Ngualla it's a high-grade bastnasite. That deposit has been subject to a natural weathering and leaching process. It's very low. It's got very low levels of radionuclides, so very low levels of thorium and uranium. It also has very low levels of acid-consuming elements, and that's relevant when we're going down the refining and separation phase because we need less reagents, less acid as part of our process. A long life of mine, so plus 20 years, supported by JORC-compliant ore reserves. Importantly, those ore reserves account for less than 20% of the resource base. So that means that there is significant potential around future mine expansions as well as material life extensions. We also benefit from a low strip ratio, so it's predominantly a free dig, minimal requirement for blasting, as well as low OPEX and CAPEX numbers. So whilst the near-term focus at Ngualla is very much on the rare earth side, longer term, we see multi-commodity or polymetallic potential. So we're going to produce a lot of barite as a byproduct. So that's initially going to be deposited in our tailings storage facility. But the other point is that we've delivered really some very interesting and promising intersections of fluorspar, niobium, and phosphate. And so these are going to be key areas from an exploration focus going forward. So beyond that and longer term, we also see additional growth opportunities at both Ngualla and Teesside. So at Ngualla, the initial focus is very much on the weathered bastnasite. We're starting to plan work to undertake further analysis of the fresh bastnasite that sits underneath the weathered bastnasite. There's also significant monazite mineralization within the deposit. So we think that there could be potential to produce a direct ship monazite concentrate. We've had some very interesting intersections of heavy rare earth in the northern zone of the deposit. And again, that's going to be a future area for exploration focus. Teesside entered into a 250-year lease over a 19-hectare site. Longer term, we see the potential to not only process our own concentrate, but also the potential to process third-party concentrate. Longer term, we see the potential of moving beyond NdPr oxides. So starting to think about things like neodymium, iron boron, alloys, powders, and then potentially even going into magnet production at some point. Longer term, we expect there to be increasing focus on life cycle solutions, and we think that could create some interesting opportunities for us around recycling. So a key point of differentiation between Peak and some of our peer development companies is that we are adopting an integrated NdPr approach. So some of our peers are going to concentrate, some are also stopping at that mixed rare earth carbonate stage. So the rationale for us in terms of going the integrated route is that it enables us to optimize margins across the value chain. It enables us to deliver a much higher realized price for our product. It removes reliance upon Chinese refining and tolling solutions. And it also enables us to meet this growing demand for non-Chinese sourced NdPr oxide. So what we've done on this slide is we've got an aerial shot of Teesside. So we're located in the Wilton International Area. That's 3 kilometres from Tees Port. Now, Tees Port is the 3rd largest port by volume in the UK. We've entered into this 250-year lease. This site provides us very much with a plug-and-play infrastructure and utilities solution. So we've got reliable, competitive access to power, reagents, steam, gas, waste disposal. Importantly, this Wilton International site is also within the recently designated Teesside Freeport Zone. So that provides us with a series of tax planning and customs benefits. What I'd also like to do is just highlight the strong level of support that we have from the UK government. And what's really sort of driving that is a combination of a desire to reindustrialise the north of England. There's been a lot of focus in the UK on the competitiveness of their ports, particularly post-Brexit. And so we're sort of consistent with that free port agenda. But probably most importantly, as I said before, UK government is committed to the ban of new internal combustion engines from 2030 and very focused on the transformation of their auto sector. And that includes broader supply chains, which we are regarded as being very much part of. So we have a very good active dialogue with the UK government. So as I mentioned before, Tanzanian cabinet approval for our SML application in July of this year. Leading up to that, we provided a commitment to the government to take that SML, vend it into a newly incorporated company that would be owned 84% by us and 16% by the government. So the government with a 16% free carried interest. Our focus at the moment is very much on the economic framework agreement process. So we are continuing to engage with the government and make progress on that front. So in terms of next steps and the way forward, we've got 3 concurrent work streams at the moment, regulatory, technical and commercial. So on the regulatory side, as I said, focus is very much on the economic framework agreement, and that process is underway. On the technical side, we've commissioned a bankable feasibility study update. So our original BFS was completed in 2017. We're in the process of refreshing and re-optimizing that study. On the commercial side, we're progressing a series of offtake discussions, and we're also working very closely with an advisor on project and export financing, as well as early engagement with a series of development banks, export credit agencies, as well as commercial banks. So all of that is then sort of leading into a final investment decision and a targeted financial completion on a project and export financing December of next year. And then we sort of go into a 2-year build and construction phase. So as I mentioned before, we've commissioned a bankable feasibility study update. And the sort of key parameters around that is to expand production. We're also doing a lot of work around a change in flotation collector. We've identified an opportunity for a shorter, lower capex access road to Nguala. And then, of course, we want to take into account the significant momentum that we've seen in terms of NdPr oxide prices. So on the left-hand side of the chart, what we've got there is some of the key parameters from the 2017 BFS and optimization study. I think that the key point here is that notwithstanding that the study was based on a long run 77.50 NdPr oxide price, which is obviously looking very conservative at this point in time. It was still delivering very robust economics and returns. What we've done here on the bottom right-hand side of the chart is that it was sort of compared where we were in 2017 and what we're targeting in terms of the BFS update. So key point there is really increasing the capacity of our mill, taking that up from 711,000 tonnes per annum up to 800,000 tonnes per annum, with a commensurate increase in production of rare earth oxide and in particular NdPr oxide. So we now have a well-rounded board of directors in place. So a good mix of technical, commercial, governance, legal, and Tanzanian experience. I think one of the key appointments that we made end of last year was Abdullah Mwinyi coming onto the board. So Abdullah is a very astute, accomplished, respected Tanzanian national, but is also incredibly well connected from a political perspective. So that's been very helpful for us because it's given us much greater insights into the political landscape. It's assisted us in refining our messaging in country, and then also enabled us to deliver that messaging to the most senior political levels. We've also recently announced a number of senior technical and marketing hires. So Lelo Palasi has joined us as head of operations and development. So Lelo has over 20 years of experience leading the development of major mining and infrastructure projects, both in Africa and more internationally. Mark Godfrey has joined us as head of technical services. So Mark has over 40 years of metallurgical experience and has spent over half of his career in the African continent. Andrea Cordwell has joined us more recently as head of marketing and sales. Andrea has joined us from South 32, but during the course of her career has worked with most of the majors, so BHP, Anglo, Vale, as well as some time with Shell. Importantly, we've retained the services of Gavin Beer on a consulting basis. So Gavin was formerly head of metallurgy at Peak, so he was, the key guy that was overseeing pilot plant test work, formation and development of our flow sheet, and overseeing that original bankable feasibility study. So we're delighted to have been able to retain the expertise and experience of Gavin. So they were the key points that I wanted to deliver in the presentation. So I think now we'd like to open the session up to questions.
Thank you, Barton. As a reminder, participants may now ask questions either by typing the question in chat or by raising your hand. If you've raised your hand and you are unmuted to ask your question, you will remain unmuted in case you have a follow-up question for Barton. On that note, we'll start with the first question, and that comes from Matthew Chen. If you just unmute yourself, Matt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Matthew.
Yes, Matthew.
How are you?
Matthew Chen, Foster Stockbroking. Hi, Barton. How are you? Thanks for the opportunity. Just wanted to touch on, obviously COP26 is very topical at the moment, and you've got arguably the important part of a very important part of your process is situated in the UK. Have you noticed a kind of a difference, or I guess a warming of government attitudes towards your project? Can you give us a little bit of an update there? Like I think you've mentioned in the past that you've had a good relationship with various levels of the UK government. So just wanted to get a sense of the change there. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we've noticed a change. We've had very strong dialogue and support from the UK government, and that's everything from the Red Car and Cleveland Borough Council. So we needed to implement our planning permission. We needed to make some substantial amendments. The council was very supportive around that approach. When we entered into a 250-year lease over Teesside, the counterparty was Homes England, which is part of the UK government. We have it's about every 6 to 8 weeks, we have a call with the Department of Investment and Trade in the UK government. And, generally they will have representation, not only from their team, but from the Red Car and Cleveland Borough Council. They'll generally have representation from the UK High Commission in Tanzania. And often representation from various bodies like the Automotive Transformation Fund or UK Export Finance. And so what we found is whenever we've sort of started to encounter an issue, they've been very proactive in terms of supporting us. The other sort of point is that they've also been very helpful in Tanzania. So last year when the Minister for African Affairs, the UK Minister for African Affairs was in country. He was actively pushing our project. We've got a very good relationship with the High Commission in country. They're very supportive. We're acting as a sponsor for an upcoming UK Tanzania business forum that's been coordinated by the UK High Commission, and I'm delivering a presentation at that conference. So we couldn't ask for any more support from the UK government. It's been phenomenal.
Okay, great, thanks. And just wanted to touch on the kind of offtake discussions and what sort of update you can give there. Particularly in light of, I guess, recent marketing hires. Thanks.
Yeah. So look, there's only so far I can actually go in terms of specific discussions. Obviously, we have non-disclosure agreements in place, but what I can say is that there is excellent momentum in Japan. We're also working on quite an interesting Korean angle. There are also some very promising, discussions and engagement in Europe. Our focus around offtake agreements, it's not to get something quickly to the market to spruik the share price. What we're actually focused on are long-term agreements with reputable, creditworthy parties that are going to be very helpful in terms of supporting long-term project and export financing. So we're going through a very methodical approach. We're also got our financial advisor involved on the project and export financing, and just ensuring that there is consistency between the requirements from a funding perspective and what we're sort of negotiating in terms of offtake arrangements. So Andrea Cordwell has recently joined us as head of marketing, and so that's now going to give us a lot more breadth. So she is in the process of reviewing our expanding, finessing our go-to-market strategy. She's also injected into a number of the current ongoing offtake discussions that we have, and she's also in the process of boarding and initiating some additional conversations and dialogue. So Matthew, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Barton. I'll pass it along. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Matthew. Our next question comes from Brett Mackay.
Hi, Brett.
G'day, Barton. Thanks for the preso, very informative. Just interested in the spot NdPr price. It seems to have strengthened quite materially in the last couple of weeks. How will you think about that in terms of deciding what is the appropriate price to use in the BFS?
Yeah, so look, I guess it's a data point. For the BFS though, what we are sort of focused on is long run life of mine pricing. So it's something that we're working through. We're also interested to see where analysts like yourself are sort of coming out with sort of long-term NdPr oxide prices. But from my perspective, I think it's very encouraging. For this year, we've seen China increasingly short of material. The thematic around rare earths and decarbonisation continues to grow. I think everyone is projecting now significant deficits, and the question is really starting to become where is the market going to actually source this material from? So I think all of that is actually really supportive for the purposes of a long run outlook for NdPr oxide.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Brett. Our next question comes from the chat from Aaron Hodges. He says, thanks, Barton. What makes you confident that the economic framework agreement will be completed by April 2022? And are the Tanzanian negotiators committed to this timeline?
Okay, so look, we're certainly working on that basis. There's a lot of momentum at the moment in Tanzania around foreign investment and the importance of moving forward with mining projects. So, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a SML granted for a group called Kabanga Nickel. They'd already negotiated their economic framework agreement. The President, Samia Suluhu Hassan, was recently delivering a speech where she was referencing her achievements over the last 6 months. And in that speech, she referenced our SML. So all the indications that we're getting is that the government is very serious and committed to getting these economic framework agreements negotiated as quickly as possible. I might just turn to the timeline and see if I can just. Oh, let me just see if I can share my screen. Sorry. Okay, so the key point, even around the economic framework agreement. So whilst we're sort of targeting completion in Q1 next year, even if it was to delay a little bit, it doesn't impact on any of the other work streams. So whilst we're focused on an expedient agreement, we're actually more focused on ensuring that it's the right agreement. So something that's going to deliver, robust, attractive returns to our shareholders, something that's going to be bankable. So going to facilitate attractive long-term project and export financing, but also something that is going to support a long-term sustainable agreement with the government, something that's going to deliver the government, a reasonable outcome and be good for the country and good for the community.
Excellent. Thank you, Barton. Our next question in the chat. Actually, before I do that, we'll just remind everyone if they have any questions to send them through in the chat or raise your hand. The next question comes from Mark Fordry. And Mark's asked about sort of institutional grade research and if you have been doing anything on that front, ultimately to look to get further institutions on the Peak Register. Thank you, Mark.
So that's absolutely a key focus of ours. We commissioned a research piece from Simon Francis for Awire Capital, and a copy of that research. It's about a 90-page document. A copy of that research is on our website. We've heard from Matthew Chen, a question from Matthew Chen earlier. So Matthew is an analyst from Foster's. Foster's has recently put out a research piece on us. We're engaging with a number of other brokers, and we'd be keen for them to pick up coverage on us. And then I guess on the IR side, we're certainly sort of ramping up our institutional engagement, both in Australia, but also increasingly offshore. So before the end of the year, we've got a couple of offshore conferences that we're participating in, very focused around, a combination of engagement with North American institutions and ESG-focused institutions in the UK and Europe.
Thanks, Barton. The next question, again from the chat, comes from Tony McMurtry. Tony asks, can you comment on your ESG credentials and how you'll maintain supply chain integrity?
Okay, so from an ESG perspective, we've already undertaken comprehensive environmental, social impact assessments, both for Ngualla as well as Teesside. We take our relationship very seriously in terms of the Ngualla community. We've been actively involved in that community. We've been constructing classrooms for schools. We've been putting a lot of funding into medical centres. We host an annual sporting function. One of the things that one of the most important things for the community is to improve the current access road. So we're working with the community to try to remediate and repair that road in the next couple of months, and that's a massive issue for the community from a medical perspective, but also from an economic perspective. And improving that road will also create a lot of industry benefits from an agricultural perspective as well. The other sort of points to note is that when it comes to Teesside, we're looking at a 100% renewable energy solution. At Ngualla, we're also trying to incorporate solar and battery element in terms of our power solution. So look, it's something that we take very seriously. In terms of supply chain, I mean, there's a lot of momentum and discussion in Europe and the UK around blockchain applications in rare earth and critical minerals. So we think that's really, really interesting and would work to our advantage. So being able to demonstrate the provenance or the source of product, as well as sort of linking that to our ESG performance and points of differentiation.
Excellent, very interesting. We don't have any further questions, but what I'll do is I'll just prompt once more for any questions, either in chat or if you would like to raise your hand, and we'll wait a short moment. Seems there are no further questions, Barton. So I'll pass over to you for concluding remarks.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining the call today. We're very sort of keen to increase our dialogue with all of you. So the intention is to make this a pretty sort of frequent occurrence going forward. But thank you for joining the call and have a great weekend.